Good morning, CSL Delaware, and of course our friends on Facebook. The theme for 2023, Living Out Loud. The theme for June is Embracing Self-Care. Today's topic is Evolution of Self-Care. Ernest Holmes reminds us that self-care begins with our thought. My body is not conscious of life, but my thought is conscious of my body. My thought operates upon my body. Holmes also reminds us of our inherent spiritual perfection. I am perfect no matter what my appearance may be. Yes, I will say that one more time. I am perfect no matter what my appearance may be. Say that to yourself every day. Audre Lorde wrote of the value of self-care in these powerful words. Self-care is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. Preservation. Self-care is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. Let us affirm together. I mindfully fill my cup up with the love of who I am. And I bring back to you, Reverend Dr. Kathleen.
Working because it went off. I know, but I had it on before. Did you replace the battery last week? You did. Okay. All right. So everyone is rooted, as Ernest Holmes says, in pure spirit and having a human experience. So this month, what we are exploring is the value of self-care, not only on the level of taking care of our bodies, which we often think of, but also taking care of the spirit, the mind, all of it together, a holistic approach. And, holistic approach to self-care has been around now for a while. But the thing that I think is really key when this particular month, as we're going to be looking at it, is that we enjoy not only health as a result of it, but we provide a vehicle, our body temple, that is a healthy place for our spirit to evolve in consciousness and to use that unlimited potentiality and possibility that is ours. It's also a way in which we can then cultivate a happy state of mind and fulfill our own unique way of living and loving and serving. And so today the focus is on the evolution of self-care. And so I was contemplating this. I did get some information, So one of my colleagues happened to post, we have a minister's listserv, happened to post that there were in our archives, and anybody has access to the Science of Mind archives, by the way. You can go to csl.org, and there's in one of the drop-down menus, there's the archives, and you can join it for either $99 a year or $10 a month. So I went on the archives. Okay, here, I'll do it. Okay, back over here. And now I can't cover it over, but that's okay. Ah, I'm whole, perfect, and complete no matter what the appearance. Okay, so anyway, there was this beautiful article by Ernest Holmes that was dated February 19th, 1950. And 1950, then when I looked online, 1950 was the beginning of the history of self-care in the United States, the awakening, and it had to do with um, the emerging field of psychosomatic medicine, which is really interesting. But I also am aware that other cultures have known about holistic self care. I was thinking the yogic tradition, and I'm sure there are others that in the Eastern cultures that have known about the importance of caring for the self on all levels. And so, even though it's kind of new here in this country, because there was so much of a focus on, I think, on science and whatever, but or on the spirit, and you just pray to God, and then God will take care of your body, which is true, and we as individualizations of the divine, must take action. So so again, this beautiful talk by Ernest Holmes called Psychosomatic Medicine and the Power of Prayer. He points out that some of the prominent doctors and psychiatrists of the time finally accepted that physical ailments have mental causes, caused by habitual patterns of negative thinking. And then this one particular prominent doctor made the proclamation which really shook, the sciences when he said, if we wish to be well, we must first cultivate a happy state of mind. We must first cultivate a happy state of mind. It's not the other way around. I'll get healthy and then I'll be happy. They were pointing to where cause was, which is within. So this was really earth-shattering back in those times for what the public had been believing up until then. And so Holmes built upon this information and reminded us that the foundation of all of it ultimately is what? Yeah, but a spiritual perspective. To come from a higher perspective, to realize who we are in truth. That foundation of valuing the care of the soul, the care of the spirit, the exaltation of the spirit. And so in the Science of Mind textbook, those of you who are really familiar with it know that if you turn to, there's some sections in there where he talks about different physical ailments and the thought causes, the thought patterns that cause them. So it was some really beautiful groundwork in that field. And then Louise Hay, so again, I'm talking about the evolution of self-care. Louise Hay became more widely known with her book, You Can Heal Your Life. How many of you are familiar with that book? Oh, lots of hands went up on that one. Good. She is religious. She was a religious science minister, and she wrote this book with a greater expression of the various ranges of ailments. And so Ernest Holmes focused on several, but she expanded that and connected certain thought patterns with each ailment. And then said, if you release the patterns of consciousness that created, this is the affirmation, I release the patterns in consciousness that create this ailment, whatever it is. And then there was an affirmation to replace whatever the pattern was. And so certain affirmations that go with these different ailments. And so I got a hold of that, I don't know, quite a long time ago, and I just thought it was so awesome. So the book explains the spiritual connection and the connection of thought patterns with various ailments. So that's the evolutionary process of self-care. And so what I want to do now is just kind of talk about three different points. One is no self-care without the care of the mind, no self-care without action, and then I'm going to conclude with and reaffirm what I talked about before is no self-care without a healthy relationship with spirit. So let's look at no self-care without care of the mind. And I want to give you an illustration. So this is a personal story that happened on Memorial Day for me. Dan and I were biking through on one of the trails. I think it's called Possum Hill. We're biking through the trails, and a lot of it is out in the open, and they're very nicely graded. And then there's this piece where you wind through the woods. So as we're winding through the woods, Dan said, well, why don't you take the, he often likes to take the lead. He said, why don't you take the lead? Okay, I'll take the lead. So I took the lead, and we're trucking along. We're having a great time. It's a gorgeous day. And, as you're going around, there are a lot of trees there, bushes, lots of multiflora rose. And so I'm headed, and all of a sudden, these other two bikers come around the corner. And I had to get out, I had to get out of the way. I had to think really quick and get out of the way. So I pulled over to the side, and I'm still moving. And for whatever reason, lost my balance, fell over sideways, crashed into this huge patch of briars, also known as multiflora rose. And I'm going, oh, something hurts. And so I just stayed there. And then Dan came and he untangled me. They were wrapped around my helmet and all kinds of stuff. Got me out of there. And the moment that I get up, the bikers start lecturing me. You really should slow down. You really should look ahead where you're going. You really should, your helmet's not quite on right. So I reacted. I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't say anything to them, but I'm like, are you kidding me? Here I am. I'm hurting. I've just fallen, and you're lecturing me. So anyway, now remember, I'm talking about no self-care without care of the mind. So anyway, I realized that I had enough awareness to know I had to feel my feelings fully and not fight them. But there was another part of me that knew that I had some inner work to do because of my reactivity. And so what I did next was, we biked on home. I connected with Michelle. And by the way, Michelle's on Facebook. Let's everybody say hi to Michelle. Hi, Michelle. We do miss you, Michelle. So anyway, Michelle and I prayed about it. And the thing that I'm reminded of so often, one of the first phrases I remember is this too is for you. This situation that I just experienced is for me. We can use everything as an opportunity to grow in consciousness, everything. And so I knew that it was for me to find the root cause of my reactivity to what was said. And those folks who made those comments were also part of the drama of life, helping me get to the root of some things that were not serving me. So spiritual mind treatment is my go-to. It's so Michelle and I prayed with Mary, I prayed with Candace, I prayed with Dean. I had several people that I connected with over the week to deal with this particular thing that had gone on with me, and also the repercussions, because I have some bruised ribs, and so I that is my go-to each and every time, is spiritual mind treatment. And part of all of that, this work, care of the mind, is to also practice forgiveness. So it's important for me to also forgive the comments that were made, to let them go, to realize they were for a purpose, rather than to condemn the people who said them. And then also to move into gratitude. Gratitude is such a wonderful, wonderful practice. And I've spent many years cultivating this by doing gratitude lists every day. And so my gratitude was, first and foremost, nothing was broken. Nothing was broken. I mean, I did have this bruising here, and it's, a little uncomfortable. And I had a nice big scrape and bruising right here. I guess where one of the briars or something scraped me. But the point is nothing serious happened, and it could have. So I was really grateful for that. And I was also grateful for another thing. I was grateful when Dan said, "Notice I did not bring the camera out before I got you out, before I pulled you out." And you know what? That was growth for Dan, because I remember years ago when I took a fall when we were skiing out west, and I landed, and it was just lots of fresh powder. That particular time was like, I don't know, 5 feet of fresh powder or something. And I crashed, and all you could see were two skis like this, and he had to take the picture of the 2 skis before he extracted me. And then another time, another time, I'm going to tell this, Dan. we were biking in the Cinque Terre area in Italy, and there was an area where there was a huge drop off down the side of the hill and a gouge out of the trail. So there was just a very thin passage. Dan went on through it, no problem. I thought, I can do that too. Well, I didn't do it so well. So again, I fell down the side of the mountain, and I'm like, Dan, get me out of here. He said, wait, I got to take a picture first. He's up there going like this. So this was growth for Dan, as he extracted me without jumping and taking a picture. So anyway, that was something to be grateful for. So there's no self-care without care of the mind. Because you see, if I had held on to those harmful thoughts, they're self-harming, it's more difficult for my body to heal. And I know that. The body heals in a field of peace. So caring for the mind is so important. So harmful thoughts, what are they? They can be things, like I said, you can be angry at other people, or it could be, I'm not good enough, I will never succeed at what I'm doing, I should give up. All of those kinds of things are harmful. And so it's important to understand the stress that they cause. And any time truly that you feel stressed, there's a stressful thought going on. That's what's important. So rather than say, I'm stressed because of that other person, or I'm stressed because of this or that or the other, stress comes from the meaning that we give to any situation. And we have the power to shift the meaning that we give to things. Byron Katie has a beautiful self-inquiry technique that you can find online, and it's 4 basic steps. And what you do is you look at the whatever the statement is. I should, they shouldn't, they should, whatever it is. I need to, I have to, and then you inquire, is it true? And you contemplate it. Is that a true statement? And it might really feel true. And then if it still feels true, you say, am I absolutely sure that that's true? And again, contemplate it. And then and then you go on to the next question, which is, how do I live if I believe this thought? Because remember, thoughts arise, and we have a choice of whether to believe them or not. We don't have to believe every thought we think. And if a thought is causing stress, it's not the ultimate truth. That's the bottom line. And so we can look at what the impact is on our bodies and on our lives and on our relationships by holding on to that thought. Ernest Holmes says we encourage that he encourages neutralizing harmful thoughts with spiritual truth. And that's another way to do it. I mean, there are different ways that we can neutralize these thoughts. But I really love doing Byron Katie's first because it really helps me look at, is it true? If it's causing me stress, it's not the truth. And how will the last question is, how will I live if I believe, what will my life be like if I don't believe this thought? And usually it's peaceful, free, etc. So what we're talking about here is a trained mind, and this is what our spiritual practice does for us. We learn to train our minds to operate in this way, like it did for me with the bike accident. We learn to understand that everything that happens is for us, and it's an opportunity to again question the thoughts that arise in our consciousness as to whether they're serving us or not, whether they're providing a healing environment for us. And a trained mind, therefore, leads to health, and it also is a greater vehicle for experiencing the joy, the peace, the love, and all of the gifts of the Spirit that each one of us have, living a fulfilling life. We're talking about spiritual liberation, spiritual freedom. Next one, no self-care without action. The science of mind philosophy is grounded and rooted in the idea that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are spirit, and yet we are having this physical experience. And so it's important to care for all levels, layers, areas, and aspects of our being. In Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, she has resources in the back of all the different types of modalities that you can use to address all these different levels of your being. So she acknowledges it, Ernest Holmes acknowledges it. It's very much a part of the New Thought philosophy, and that's why we're focusing on embracing self-care this month. And so, yes, it's important to start with the mind. However, then it's important to move into action. And, the steps basically are thought, feelings, action. So we begin with the thoughts, and I'll use self-care. Self-care starts with the mind, the thoughts about what your health looks like. Visioning is so beautiful for that. What does my highest level of health look like? And then what does it feel like? There's the feeling. and so the feeling is the power that motivates us, that moves us forward into action. So just doing everything intellectually, I need some water. So just doing everything intellectually in your mind doesn't work. It must be powered or partnered with feeling. We emphasize that in our classes. The feeling is the power that motivates. So I'd like to illustrate. I knew that I needed to move into action. I was working on my own consciousness, looking at what was, creating the reactivity, what was the belief that was behind that, replacing it with truth. And then what popped into my mind is keep drinking water, because that's really important for the healing process. Focusing on anti-inflammatory foods. Going to the chiropractor and getting an adjustment. And I got an adjustment, and it hurt, but I got an adjustment. And then he said, how about picking up some arnica and magnesium? And so there's magnesium spray. So I already had the magnesium spray. I picked up some arnica, started applying that, and then I found out about this huge scrape and bruise that's down here. So Michelle had given us an aloe plant, and one of the leaves broke off. So I took the aloe plant, opened it up, put it there, put bandages over it. So there are all kinds of things. These are just some of the things that we can apply. So science of mind is very much in treat and move your feet. Do the inner work and move your feet and do the things that support the healing process. I also, when I went to my yoga and Pilates classes this week, asked for modifications. I said, this is really sore right here. How can I do, would you please step in and give me alternatives for the different things that might, like lying on my stomach was not going to happen. What are some alternative things I can do? So all of these things that are self-care that support the healing, but also, I also know that it's not a good idea just to sit around for the healing process. I need to still keep active and doing things. So no self-care without action. The next one is no self-care without a healthy relationship with spirit. Again, Ernest Holmes says if we wish to establish the best relationship between mind and body, we must first begin by establishing the best relationship between the spirit and the mind. And he reminds us that all of our subconscious processes, all of those beliefs that we hold, are a reflection of how we relate to the universe, to the presence of spirit or God. They give us information on how we relate. And he said we cannot escape this. And back in the 1950s, there was a scientist by the name of Karen Horney who spoke of 4 core beliefs or habits of thinking that cause disease. And here they are: a sense of rejection, a sense of guilt, a sense of insecurity, and a sense of anxiety. Ernest Holmes reminds us that no one can straighten out our thinking for us but ourselves. I mean, we can certainly rely on practitioners and friends and so on to help us see where our thought patterns have gotten out of alignment. But ultimately, it's up to each one of us to make the shift, to repeat the new, to do the inner work, to repeat the new thought patterns, to replace the old thought patterns, etc. So let's deal with those particular things that Karen talked about. She said, if a sense of rejection is behind, actually Ernest Holmes talked about this. He said, if a sense of rejection is behind your physical problems, you can neutralize it by realizing life needs us or we wouldn't be here. So that's an automatic acceptance and a valuing of who we are by the universe. We're here for a purpose. So we are accepted, loved, and wanted by the universe, or we wouldn't be here. To release a sense of insecurity and anxiety, Holmes says we need to establish self-confidence. And how do we do that? By developing confidence in spirit. And how do we do that? Through affirmative prayer and meditation. One of the powerful things that affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment has done for me is that it has built confidence, not only in myself, but myself as an individualization of spirit and a confidence in the goodness of the universe. I have my moments where I slip, but I always go back to reminding myself the incredible support that's available to me and to each and every one of us 24/7, which is the presence of spirit. So confidence that's rooted in the awareness of who we are and whose we are. You release a sense of guilt through what? Yes. Yes, forgiveness. Forgiveness. Releasing the meaning that we have placed on past experiences. I like to use that idea of meaning because it's the meaning that we give things that causes our suffering. So the beautiful thing about the forgiveness process is it brings us back to reminding ourselves this too is for me, and what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this in compassion and love? And also when we affirm the perfection of the divine, realizing that God is omnipresent, present everywhere in its fullness and in its totality, then that means we are in essence whole, perfect, and complete. And going to that and reminding ourselves of that reminds us what that little quote was, is that despite the appearances, we are whole, perfect, and complete. And going back to that puts us in a state of peace. And remember, healing takes place in a peaceful state of mind. The other piece that's so important is once we continue with our spiritual practice, we realize that if we are perfect, whole, and complete just as we are, then we are these unique, individualized expressions, then it's important to know then that, or not important, I think it just dawns on, oh, then I don't need to copy somebody else or be like this, more like this person, or aspire to be more like that person, but I can instead inspire to be the greatest expression of me. That's been a journey for me. Because I remember when I started off in this field, I wanted to be like Michael Beckwith. It wasn't working. And now I realize I need to be me. I need to be the greatest expression of who I am. And that's the gift that I give to life, to this planet, to this time and space. And that's how we reach fulfillment. It's truly allowing ourselves to be who we are in truth. And so, conclusion, self-care involves 3 levels: spirit, mental, physical. I would throw in emotional there too, but emotional is really fits in there. And if we want to be well in body, we need to remember that it begins within. Begins with a happy mind, cultivating a happy mind. And if we want a happy mind, we have to develop confidence. And if we want to develop confidence, then we must have faith in a power greater than we are. Do you see how it all goes back to the spiritual truth of who we are? Because when there is self-love, when we understand that we are the presence of love, because the divine is love, and so actions that we take toward our minds and our bodies are either based on love or fear. And I choose love. I choose love. So no matter how dreary our past, Ernest Holmes says, the future can be bright with hope and the present a thing of joy. Life comes to us in new and fresh ways each day. And so he gives this very simple formula that we can use to bring ourselves back into alignment with who we are. And it's going to sound really familiar to many of you. There is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is... All right. Yes, yes, yes. You passed. So let's turn within in prayer now and bless our bodies. And I'm going to use this beautiful prayer in first person that's by Ernest Holmes. So take this in as your own. And I'll read it slow enough so you can affirm it silently in your own minds. My body is the temple of the living God. I believe in the ability and the willingness of spirit to sustain its own creation. I believe that every organ and function of my physical body is animated by the living spirit within me. I have complete confidence in this spirit. I know that I am loved by and needed by this spirit. because I'm here. I feel at home with it. I feel that I belong to the world in which I live. That I love people and they love me. I feel free of anxiety. I am secure in life. I am laying all of my fears and doubts aside and entering into quiet communion with Spirit, the spirit of confidence, of faith, of acceptance. My whole being is renewed, invigorated, and made alive. I'd like you to repeat after me that one. We can do that out loud. My whole being is renewed.
My whole being is renewed,
Invigorated.
invigorated,
And made alive.
and made alive.
There is stillness and perfect peace at the center of my being as I wait on that presence, which makes all things perfect. I know I am guided into right action. In fact, you can say this one after me too. I know that I'm guided into right action in the care of my spirit, mind, and body.
In the care of my spirit, mind, and body.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my beloved, do we have, what's next? Oh, Education Sunday. Oh, doesn't that come after Sharon? No? Okay.